Okay, so this is crazy. Um, Had a long day, just trying to relax just a little bit. But I got something on my mind I need to share. And let me just get right down to it. The name of the video is Racism is Demonic. Racism is a demonic activity, which I don't believe a lot of people consider. A lot of people are looking into the natural when it comes to racism, but racism is actually very demonic, very dark in his spiritual background and nature. Um, so let me start back several thousand years. I appreciate there was this ex-white police officer who pointed out that back in the biblical days, Pharaoh and that whole Moses versus Pharaoh showdown, or God versus Pharaoh showdown, that Pharaoh, right before he was forced to let the people go, he made life hard for the Hebrew slaves. He just didn't like them, and it's been recorded in the Bible that he wanted to get rid of the Hebrew slaves lest they multiply and overtake Pharaoh. And so that was back in biblical days. So that kind of spirit existed back then. I mean, he had a mindset to want to get rid of and to kill all the Hebrew slaves. He wanted to kill the boys. He just didn't like them. He made life hard for them. That type of oppression existed back in biblical days. Now, if you fast forward, several hundred years to the beginning of slavery, um, and all throughout slavery, all 400 years of slavery, especially the physical kind. There's mental slavery that's happening now, but the physical slavery, and even physical slavery in jail cells and things like that now. But what would cause people to want to oppress another human being or another race of people? I can only allude it and equate it to demonic activity. Um, and how it happens is, okay, so and to be clear and to separate some things, it's not the devil or demons coming on earth to enslave people, but they're using people to oppress and to enslave other people. And how he uses that, and I mentioned another video before, I put it on my Facebook page, talking about how the devil uses the hatred that is in somebody's heart against another person. Okay, so coming back to the topic of this video, racism, how it happens is whether it be a bank manager refusing to give any person of color a loan, whether it's an employer refusing to give any person of color a job. So I'm talking about systemic racism. We're refusing to give um, certain sections of the city proper education, and not, or whether it be like in Flint, Michigan, where they don't really care about them, so they allow the water to go bad. They're not doing anything to fix that. That's it's more than just a natural racist mindset. Behind the scenes, what's happening is the hatred that's in somebody's heart, or the indifference. The devil uses that to oppress a person or a people. Okay, so how can So the answer becomes, or the question becomes, how can a person be used by the devil? Okay, so well, you got to understand um, how this works and how spiritual activity works. Um, you know how when you go to a liquor store, some liquor stores, if they're, of highbrow, they'll call them wine and spirits. You ever wonder about that? Why they would call them wine and spirits? Well, we know the wine, but why do they call them spirits? What's spiritual about alcohol? Well, I understand, there is something very spiritual about being under the influence, being inebriated. When you have that mindset, first of all, if you are high or if you are drunk, the notion is that your inhibitions go down. So if you've been high or drunk, you do more than what you would if you weren't high or drunk. You know what I mean? So your guards are down a little bit. So what that means is you're more open to mental suggestions, things that come to your mind, behaviors, actions that come to your mind. Whereas before, you would dismiss it like, no, I would never do that. I'd never, pull my pants down in front of everybody. I would never, urinate in the alley. I would never do those things. But under the influence, people have taken those measures before because they let their guards down. So being under the influence is certainly a form of indulging in spiritual activity, because whatever thoughts come to your mind, you're more likely to do it. Now, you're not going to lose your mind, your complete mind. You're not going to do everything, but there are certain activities that you will do. So what I'm trying to point out is there's a thin line between your mind and spiritual activity. Most of us, just brush it off like, okay, I don't wouldn't think about that. But if some people are influenced by spiritual activity and they not even realize it, your mind is a battleground for spiritual activity. So even more so when there's hatred in your heart or hatred in your life or in your mind, the enemy, the devil uses that to oppress people and persons. Okay, so when we're talking about racism, and I've been seeing all these online conversations about, racism and how African Americans have been oppressed for hundreds of years so far, and people tend to think that that's obviously that's not a new problem, but I need us to understand to look a little larger, that this is a demonic problem. Yes, it's being played out by mankind, and yes, it's being generational. There's generations of people who have oppressed other people, and that mindset perpetuates itself through generations. But understanding that we're not fighting against flesh and blood, okay? Flesh and blood is being used in this war, but more so, it's a spiritual war, that we're under spiritual attack in this, okay? That the demons and the devil, Satan himself, is oppressing people using the hatred, using the alternative mindset of people of flesh and blood to go against people. And again, the reason why a lot of people don't see this is because Satan makes himself he makes himself invisible to everybody. He doesn't he's not going to come up with the red suit and horns and say, I'm here to oppress people. He's going to use people so that we could be fighting against each other. So, like I said in my last video, it'll be, blacks versus whites. It'll be, gays versus straights. It'll be Jews versus Muslims or Christians. And, we'll be fighting against each other. All the while, spiritually, he's using our mindset, again, which is a thin line between our mind and spiritual activity, against each other anytime we have any hatred in our heart. I mentioned in my last video, the best solution that we could use is love. I mean, if you have love in your heart, there's no way that you can be evil toward anybody. But that's the problem. We need more love today. But I just needed us to understand that this problem is not just a flesh and blood problem. The problem, the oppression of an entire race of people, is not new. It's been around since mankind has been around, but understanding it's more than just flesh and blood. It's demonic activity. It's, Satan and his demons are out to oppress. He's out to kill, steal, and destroy. And he'll do that through the means of flesh and blood, getting us against each other. But we have to look at it through spiritual eyes. It's not just human eyes. It's not just, looking at each other with the side eye, saying that, this person doesn't like me, or this person's racist, or there's institutionalized racism, which it is. But behind the scenes of all of that are Satan and his demons to try to oppress an entire race of people. It is that. I welcome your comments on this, but again, I tried to let this go, but obviously for some reason it was on my mind, so I need to share it. Hopefully somebody can get a revelation on this, and we could talk about some more loving solutions. God bless.